Hi everyone, Joanna Rogister here with Real Talk Spirituality at Speak Up and Empower. Speak Up and Empower is an online community of women and men that are focused on creating a world that they envision for themselves, a world that is all inclusive. And I said women and men before I apologize. It's an online community for anyone that's heart-centered and focus on creating a vision of the world that they see for themselves. Whether you're an entrepreneur and you have a voice that you want to be heard, or you are someone that's exploring life, then we have the experts for you to hear from. So today at Real Talk Spirituality, we're going to talk about why all the friggin' life lessons. We go through life and it's, yes, life is about having adventures and life is about learning, but yeah, sometimes you just get tired of it, don't you? Like, I do. I know that there's just some days where I think, oh my God, enough already. I don't want to do the work anymore. Just let me be. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way, unfortunately, or it can, but I think it's going to be a pretty boring life. It's going to, you just don't feel the joy and the love, and you get the more downs and the ups, and I think that's what really brings us to really enjoy life and to want to explore more. We were brought here. We had a contract to come to Earth and to learn, to have these adventures, and to experience as much of this human experience as possible. To understand here, we have to know there. To understand now, we have to understand then. So I think life is of this journey of exploring human emotions, exploring the ego, exploring the conscious and the subconscious, exploring what happens when we do this. So it can make it challenging, though, sometimes when we seem to be having more of the the difficult adventures. It's one thing to say, oh, I'm late for work today. What was that teaching me? As another thing to explore, why did I have that car accident? Or why did I become, break a leg or something along that lines? But I would suggest to you that everything that happens in life is part of the experience that you chose. And so blame yourself. It is your fault. It is the reason why you're here. So, and I shouldn't use that fault, because a fault assumes that you did something wrong or that there is judgment to be laid out. It's just part of the human experience and why you chose to be here. And if you can get into shadow work and understanding, the dark side of who you are, coming to love all aspects of yourself, your shadow side, those parts of yourself that you don't particularly like, or perhaps you judge, that's when we get into issues. When you do judge those parts of yourself, when you can truly learn to love all aspects of yourself, then that's when you have the greatest love for yourself, the greatest compassion for yourself. To come back to the lessons, it is challenging sometimes, and it's hard to understand why things happen, but I would encourage you to step back and be an observer in your life. And when challenges do come up, when adventures do come up, to explore why you're being created or why you're being offered these lessons. And we keep getting lessons until we've learned the lesson, until we've explored that adventure fully. What can I tell you? So I used to get sore throats all the time. It was always kind of the weak point in my body. We all have that area of our body that when our immune systems are low, or when we're not feeling good, we're under a lot of stress, that's kind of the first area that we physically have symptoms. So mine used to be my throat, which makes sense, because as a child, I was always to be seen and not heard, and I wasn't allowed to have a voice, and I picked a partner that I carried carried on that tradition with. So it's been an ongoing journey for me to allow my voice to be heard, to speak my truth. And it is a constant journey for me, and it's still an ongoing piece of who I am, of admitting what I do, and to reach out and tell people that I do more than life coaching, that I do more than homeopathy and nutrition, that I now, and so here you go, I want to choke, but I channel and I do readings and I channel different groups, other intergalactic groups. I can channel medium, like I act as a medium, and I can connect with those that have passed over. It doesn't have to be someone that's passed over, though. You can connect with someone that's living. Oftentimes, I'll be doing a reading for someone, and someone that is living I'll feel their energy. And so on a soul level, subconscious, unconscious level, they are tapping into the conversation that I'm having with that person, and they want to share something. So it is a journey of self-discovery and awareness, and a journey for me to admit, to allow people to know that I am more than what I have told myself I am. I spent the first 20 years of my life, not first 20 years, but after high school, the next 20 years in the banking industry, the corporate financial world. And it's a huge change for me. And I certainly would have laughed at you and thought you were crazy if you ever told me that, 15 years later, I would be channeling intergalactic groups from other dimensions. So this is part of the process, though, right? Part of the adventure. So earlier on, I always had throat issues. I would get under stress, and I think of Christmas every single year. I always had a sore throat just before Christmas. So crazy month of Christmas, right? And just before, of all the events that happen, all the shopping you need to do, the getting ready, everything like that. And I would start to get a sore throat or have headaches, but I ignored it because I didn't have the time, and I really didn't know what to do with that information that I was being shown. December 24th would come around, and oh my gosh, my grass cutter is going to cut my grass for me. Anyways, we'll see how loud it is. But on December 24th, almost every single year, I would get sick with a sore throat because December 23rd, you finish work, and the 24th, you finally get a chance to sit down, and your body goes, okay, you're giving me a break. All right, I'm going to take back what I needed to, and I'm going to take back the energy that you need to heal yourself. And so I would be sick for December 24th, and usually for a couple of days afterwards, every single year, until I finally paid attention. And now I know if I ever get a sore throat or anything like that, then it's a sign for me to pay attention. There's something going on here that I need to be aware of. But it's also, I know, to take some vitamin C and get a good night's sleep, and 9 times out of 10, it's gone the next day. And if it's not, then it's really a lesson for me to, what's going on with my life. I will also suggest to you that when I'm doing readings and when I'm connecting with other dimensions, that my voice changes. It gets lower. And I don't know if you noticed, but my voice now is lower than when I first started. And it is getting actually kind of gravelly in there. So it's part of the journey now. And that is a sign for me when I'm doing more soul work. You may have that happen yourself. You may feel your voice may change. Some people actually get higher. Some people, their voice gets lower. You may notice an adjustment in your body when you're doing more of the soul work. There's all kinds of physical manifestations of the journey of what's taking place, but being an observer in your life will help you to recognize the lessons when you're shown them, so that you can actually do something about it rather than wait until you get really sick. And I've mentioned before in this conversation, this Real Talk Spirituality, that I developed Graves' disease years ago, and Graves' disease is a hyperthyroid autoimmune condition, and so your body attacks your thyroid and sees it as an invader for, they're not really sure why, but all of my symptoms were symptoms of being overwhelmed, heart racing, heart palpitations, headaches on a regular basis, can't sleep at night because it takes a while took a while for my body to slow down enough to relax. So it was constantly on edge, hungry all the time, starved all the time, but irritated because I never, I always felt hungry. I couldn't eat enough. And yes, I was eating constantly and couldn't lose weight. And my sister actually had the same thing and she loved it, but mine went to the extreme. And so I was always like, and stressed out. But what was going on in my life at the time was I was completely overwhelmed, trying to be the perfect mother and the perfect employee and the perfect wife, and didn't feel I could talk to anyone about it because then that would be admitting defeat. And being completely overwhelmed in my mental and emotional life manifested into a physical imbalance that was taking place with all the same symptoms. So for years, I just wasn't listening. And probably when I finally was diagnosed with the Graves' disease, I probably had those symptoms for 5 or 6 months before I finally did something about it. And if I had been listening before and paying attention, understanding what my lessons were, I could have done something about it. And I had to go on meds for about 3 months or something like that. And then, but I was able to wean myself off of them because I changed my diet. I learned to slow down a bit, went to a naturopath at the time. Now I go to homeopath. Came to understand myself better and came to understand more about me and being able to recognize and slow down and knowing I didn't have to be that perfect anything. And there's a lesson there, right? Of that I was enough, but I certainly didn't think so at the time. All kinds of lessons to be learned, but this is what happens, is that we keep getting the lessons until we learn the lesson. So what right now, I would encourage you to look at your life and ask, what am I being shown? What lesson is here? What piece of the puzzle am I being asked to look at? The majority of my life now is in a flow where things go pretty well. I do have bumps, I have ups and downs, but if there's downs, I'm able to look at it and go, what is that about? Why is that happening? The joy, happens on a daily basis, and it can be in the moment. It can be, just looking at the flowers in my backyard and thinking how gorgeous they are and what kind of creator would create such infinite variety and wealth of plants and beings and things on this planet. So joy can be felt all the time, but it is those typically the lower points that are the lessons. It's, a flag. What's going on here? So what is going on in your life that you're being shown on a regular basis? If accidents happen, why do they happen? People will tell me that, I've hurt my shoulder, and they'll say, well, it was just an accident. It's like, well, it was an accident, but it could have been prevented if you had taken a look. No, not that, because that's assuming you're doing something wrong. Things can be let go, and you don't have to reach that point where the accident has to happen. You can step in and make changes so that the hurting your shoulder, damaging your shoulder doesn't have to happen, so that there's then permanent damage to the shoulder. Shoulders are about anger. Shoulders and neck are about anger, and anger being stuck in the body. When people talk about a frozen shoulder, it's anger stuck in the body. Anger is also related to liver issues. So if you've got a lot of allergies, it's entirely possible there's a lot of anger stuck in your body. What can you do about it? First of all, it's coming to recognize the anger and coming to see where it's coming from. Because a lot of times we suppress anger. A lot of times we push it down because we're told to not be angry, or, that that's not a good thing. And, it's that new age, God, I'm using my fingers, quotes them a lot today. The new age way of suppressing everything. And you're always supposed to be happy, and you're always supposed to be joyful, and nothing's wrong. Well, that's just crazy. That's not the human existence. Now, we ideally don't want to go down the rabbit hole and get stuck there. And that's where we can truly come into our power, where we recognize we're in the rabbit hole, and we recognize how we got there or why we got there, and we pull ourselves out. It's truly a beautiful experience when you can, to actually explore that rabbit hole on a conscious level and be able to understand why you're there, how you got there, and what you're supposed to learn from it. So you come to understand, what the lesson is that's presented, and then come to understand the tools that you need to avoid that lesson in the future, the tools that you need to release the lesson, release the energy, to move forward, to allow more. And a lot of times those tools it's a challenging to develop those tools. And that's where someone like me or a variety of other coaches that are out there is that, I even when I'm challenging, it's teaching you channeling. Even when I'm channeling, what so often comes through is that whoever I'm channeling encourages the person to understand themselves better, so that going forward, there's less lessons to be learned, or shorter lessons, or less impactful lessons. Working with someone like myself can really help you move through things a lot quicker. It took me many years to do it on my own, and now I can help clients in, even one session or a series of sessions to move through wherever they're stuck or find their life purpose, all these things. So to come back to why the lesson, it's just because you haven't learned it. There is one point there's a few points, but one of the points I would encourage you to consider, though, when something comes up, is that the lesson may not necessarily be yours. You may have a contract with someone else to help them understand their lesson. And ideally, the impact on you is quite small, but it may have affected you. For example, I moved, hence that's why my office doesn't look the way I want it to quite yet, but we're moving towards it. That's my book. On 2 days ago, I picked up some carpet, loaded it in the Jeep, the car that my son drives, and had to get someone to help me. And the carpet was long enough that I had to lift it up onto the dashboard, and I asked the person to push it just a couple more inches, and she shoved it, and it smashed the front window of the Jeep. It was very maddening. She just kind of went and walked away. Not much I can do about it. Got to claim it, got to pay for it. But when I asked, like, what the heck was all of that all about? What did I need to learn there? It actually was more about my son and his need. He gets very frustrated with things like this. And so the lesson for me was, this is not really about me. It is to a certain degree, but it was more for me to understand how lessons can work a little bit better. But it was more a lesson for my son to not get so caught up in this, that sometimes you typically, and this is what he did, although not to the degree that he used to, is that he got quite upset, and how could I let this happen, and blah, 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 blah. And he knew it wasn't my fault, and he really wasn't blaming me, but there is that blame. You're like, this is someone else's fault. And of course it was someone else's fault, but the lesson was still his, that this really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Yes, it's, whatever it costs to replace that. But in the grand scheme of things, like a month from now, will we remember it? No. It just won't matter. So the lesson is, don't get caught up in the day-to-day minutiae of what happens. let things flow more, be in the moment, be that observer, be able to step back and look and ask, why am I being shown this? What's this all about? Is it mine? Which is such a big question, especially if you're an empath or anything along that lines, because often we will feel things and we will assume they're ours, but often they're someone else's. Prime example here, it was my son's lesson. I was involved. He was actually supposed to go pick up the carpet, and it would have happened with him, but that's beside the point. So this is his lesson. But it took place. Now I'm going to have to pay for it. So maybe there's a lesson in here for me too. But so lessons don't always have to be about you. But if something is coming up, being an observer in your life will allow you to tap in on that physical, mental, emotional level to see trends. Journaling is a great way to write down, to keep track of what's going on in your life and to notice patterns, to notice events that are happening, patterns on a regular basis, to notice any habits that you have, and perhaps there's things that you need to change or would be good for you to change, for you to come back to balance, come back to being in the moment, and let go of lessons that you're being shown, so that you don't have to continue to experience the lessons. So it's not, life is not easy, but it can be filled with so much joy that it's just so worth it. You don't have to really worry about that. And, it's okay to be down sometimes, as long as you're able to be the observer and pull yourself back out. And almost everything that happens in life, there are no accidents. There are no coincidences. Things happen for a reason. You're shown things for a reason. People show up in your life for a reason. You can hurt yourself, but there's always a reason for it. There's always energetically a reason for what's going on. I used to have problems years ago towards the end of my marriage. These are about not being willing to step forward. And I knew that the marriage wasn't working for me, but my self-confidence, my self-esteem was too low for me to ever leave, but also, committed and had children and all those things. So I couldn't step away from that marriage, but it resulted in damaging my left knee. Had to tore my ACL and ripped my meniscus at Taekwondo, but it still was all part of that energetic scenario that was going on of, hey, so with my knee, it wasn't like it was a one-time event that had happened. It was a number of events that happened over time. And at first it was just a little tear and a little twitch. And the next time it was a stronger twinge. And when I was doing suicide drills, I would get to the end and twist around and it wouldn't hurt like heck. And then anyways, it built up to it and finally just tore. Lesson learned now. But even at the time, it's not like I was so aware that I went, oh, that's because I'm not stepping forward into my future. This is hindsight's a wonderful thing. And if I could go back, well, there's where that shadow work comes in. There's nothing to be ashamed of here. Looking back, I wish that I'd had the confidence that I needed in order to step away, but I didn't. And so here we are today. And I'm stepping into who I am. I admitted before that I channel and do readings on that level, connecting with your guides, different intergalactic beings, the Hathors, Saint Germains, Archangel Michael, beings along that lines. I can channel through them. They would encourage you, if you have any questions, see here they're coming through right now. If you have questions or concerns that you've always wondered about and thought, who can I ask? We have the ability to connect with you, to give you the messages that you need in order to help you achieve your life purpose. Please connect with Joanna. Please connect with me, and we can do some channeling and guide you towards your life purpose and some of the blocks that are preventing you from achieving it. I have a few businesses, Wellness Renegades, Soul Alchemist, is the next manifestation of my journey. You can follow me on Facebook, but reach out. Real Talk Spirituality is on Speak Up and Empower. We are an online community of people focused on creating the world that they envision for themselves. Entrepreneurs allowing your voice to be heard and your expertise, your passion. People that are searching for more, finding the experts that they need to help you find your more. It is a membership-based community, so reach out at speakupandempower.com and find out more. You can talk to me, Joanna Rogister, and to get more information. But follow me every Thursday on Real Talk Spirituality, Thursdays at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. Have a great day, and happy July 24th for all the American viewers, and happy Canada Day for all those Canadians that we just had that yesterday. See you next week. Thanks.